Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to our webinar on the CoSTAR National Lab Advanced Production Technology Funding Call. My name is Bronnie. I'm the piloting producer here at CoSTAR National Lab, and I'm going to run through a few housekeeping and agenda points for today's webinar before handing you over to the people that you really want to hear from to tell you all about the call itself. So, a few bits from me before we start. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel after the event today for you to revisit and for others who haven't been able to join to access. Because of this, you've all been joined to the meeting with your cameras off and your microphones muted. We will keep this on during the presentations. However, when we get to the Q&A portion of the webinar today, we'd really love it if you felt comfortable to turn your cameras on and to ask your questions so we can have more of an informal discussion and see you face to face. So a few tips from us for having the best webinar experience possible. If you are able to, please join on your laptop rather than on your phone through the Teams app or on a web browser. If you are only on your phone, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to take a moment to just switch over, please feel free to do so now. We also recommend, if you have this option, to turn on speaker view. If you would like to turn on transcription, if that's useful for you, you can do this yourself within the team settings, and we can also provide a transcription at the end of the webinar. We do have a dedicated Q&A portion of the webinar today. But if you do think of a question that you'd like to ask whilst the presenters are speaking, please feel free to put it into the Q&A box. Please put it there rather than in the chat. It's a lot easier for us to manage the questions there, and we will get to them when we get to the Q&A portion. And you're also able to post questions there anonymously if you'd like to. However, as I mentioned, we'd love to hear from you yourselves today. So everything that we talk about today, the slides, all of the key links and everything will be shared with you after the event. So keep an eye out for that email. Here is today's agenda. It's up on the screen now for you to see quickly. There's a lot to get through, but we will strive to get to the Q&A as quickly as possible so that we can open up the floor and hear from you as well. So I'm joined today by some really fantastic speakers. In the interest of time, I will let them introduce themselves, but they're all brilliant and they've got a wealth of knowledge and experience to bring to this session and to the project overall. So that's all from me for now. I will be back for the Q&As. So until then, thank you again so much for joining today. I hope you enjoy the session. I hope it's useful. I hope it's inspiring. And on that note, speaking of inspiring, I will pass it over to Becky Gregory-Clark.
Hi there, my name is Becky Gregory-Clark. I am the co-head of innovation for the CoSTAR National Lab and based at the National Film and Television School, which is a partner on the National Lab project. I'm going to talk to you today. First, just a little bit of background about the CoSTAR project and where this call has come from, if you're not familiar with us or if you're new to us. And then through some of the specifics of this call. So CoSTAR is, if you've not heard of it, it's about a 75.6 million investment from UKRI, being run by the Arts and Humanities Research Council, to set up a network of labs across the UK to help foster and support the growth of creative industries R&D and ultimately help grow the creative economy in the UK. And that's through access to infrastructure, crucial creative infrastructure, expertise, and in the cases of things like this, funding as well. There are 5 labs in total. This call is being hosted and run by the National Lab. That's where myself and my colleagues on the call here today are all from. That lab is will be based in Buckinghamshire. It's led by Royal Holloway with partners including the National Film and Television School, University of Surrey, Abertay University, BT, Disguise, and Pinewood Studios. The main lab will be opening at Pinewood next year, but for now we have a great studio space based at the Royal Holloway University, which we'll talk more about later. So that's the National Lab, but we have a great network of collaborators across the UK running labs in Wakefield. That's the Live Lab led by University of York. the Real-Time Lab in Dundee, led by Abertay University, and the Screen Lab in Belfast, led by Ulster University. And then we have a Foresight Lab that is not a physical infrastructure, but is more focused on industry insight, trends, policy, and that sort of thing. Really crucial insight as well. So that's the network. And as well as access to that infrastructure, so 4 of those labs have physical studio spaces and other infrastructure to be made available to the creative industries for R&D. We also run a set of industry access programs to help facilitate that access. And they fall into broadly 2 categories, so enterprise and commercialization programs and prototypes and pilots programs. Enterprise and commercialization is more focused on company growth, business acceleration, that sort of activity. And we run a number of initiatives in the past, including Ideate, if you've ever come across it. And we'll be rolling out more activities on that front in future. This call is part of the Prototypes and Pilots programme, which is more about supporting creative R&D projects and helping them to access the infrastructure and access some funding as well to help accelerate those R&D projects. And that fund specifically, the Prototypes and Pilots programme fund, is about 3.6 million in total. So this call forms part of that. So onto this call specifically, advanced production technology is the theme for this call. And we are looking for UK-based creative or tech-focused companies working on technical innovations within production pipelines. We're looking for creative R&D projects that could be early stage prototypes or proof of concepts, or they could be later stage product developments or demonstrators. But they should all be projects that could lead to some commercial opportunities or company growth. So it needs to be something that you can clearly articulate why this is going to produce a commercial opportunity for your company of some kind. They should be R&D projects that can demonstrate a clear need to access the CoSTAR infrastructure, research expertise, and funding. So we tend to think of it, what we can offer at CoSTAR as a package of support. We're not just a straight funding body, as there are some others in the space that just primarily are providing access to funding. We are more about trying to help boost R&D through the infrastructure that we support, and having some funding to help accelerate that. So do have a think and have a read about the whole package that we offer as well. I would suggest on that front. We're looking for use cases that could be from across the creative industries, in particular the screen and performance sectors. So it could be from film, TV, games, animation, live performance, other forms of digital content production as well. So it's quite broad within that. And also just in terms of contextualizing the call, these projects will also help the CoSTAR network to trial and test and showcase new ways of supporting R&D in the creative industry. So there's a bit of a two-way collaboration there with the team that you'd be working with. So in terms of advanced production technology, of course, that is quite broad, and we're open to applications in a range of areas. We have a few particular areas of interest. It's not limited to these, so feel free to put in an application in a different area within production technology. But the areas we're particularly interested in at the moment are new forms of 2D and 3D capture or asset production, motion capture or motion extraction techniques, AI-powered production pipelines, democratized production, so where you have an innovation that might significantly lower the barrier to entry or increase accessibility to technology use. We're very interested in those. And converged production as well, so where you might have use of common assets, tools, production workflows that can enable effective translation of IP across different forms. So that might be using tooling from across different parts of the creative sector or beyond, in that sort of converged space. What we have on offer, as I say, is a package of support. So we have a studio facility, the Future Studio, as I've explained, that's based in Egham in Surrey at Royal Holloway University at the moment. And there's a 1-week sprint available at that you can book in at some point during your project. We also have AI compute facilities available if needed. So there's these are based at the University of Surrey. A cluster of up to 8 HP200 GPUs for up to 200 hours could be made available for companies taking part if needed. We have research expertise, staff and researchers to guide and collaborate with you through this as needed. And my colleague Mars is going to talk a little bit more about those facilities and expertise in a moment. There's cash funding, of course, available for these projects. So there's not a fixed amount per project. We have a total of 140,000 cash funding available to support between 3 and 5 projects for this call. So we're expecting to take on a sort of portfolio of projects, and they might be have different budgets. The maximum we'd award to any single project for this call would be 40k. On top of that, there's also a travel budget available to help make the lab particularly to make the lab space, but to make it more accessible for people who need to use it. So if you require a period of residency for a couple of days or more at the CoSTAR National Lab, and if travel is more than 2 hours, then there's up to 4k available for travel. If you have any questions or you're not sure what's eligible, you can always get in touch with us about that. But that would be available on top of the main project budget. We also have available accessibility bursaries as well. So if you have particular access requirements, particular accessibility requirements, either for applying for funding or for actually taking part, if you are successful, then we do have additional bursaries available there as well. So that's something you can talk to us about, and there's some information online. I think my colleague is going to put the link to that in the chat as well. So in terms of eligibility, you would need to have a lead applicant that is an enterprise or legal entity registered and trading in the UK. There isn't actually a restriction on the size of the company that can apply. It can't be a sole trader, it needs to be a company. But in terms of the size, there isn't restriction. But you would find in the full brief, there is some information about what the size of company cannot claim back different amount of cost. So there's some details in there if you're depending on your size. You must be from or support the screen and performance sectors as their particular areas of focus for CoSTAR. You need to have an operations or project team primarily based in the UK. If you do need to use subcontractors or partners outside the UK, it's not completely out of the question, but you'd need to have a chat with us, because this funding is primarily intended to benefit UK-based companies. And you cannot attribute more than 75% of project costs to subcontractors, but they can be from anywhere in the UK. To apply, you need to use the Submittable platform. If you haven't used it before, you would need to register with Submittable. Please have a read of all the core documentation. I imagine if you're joining us here today, you probably have had a good read of it already. But there is there's a web page, but there's also a full downloadable brief if you haven't found that. And there's some FAQs and a summary of our key terms as well for you to access. The application form has 10 questions on it, and each have a 500-word limit. If you are logged into the Submittable platform, you'll be able to view all of those questions, and you can save your form and apply when you're ready. And we do offer reasonable adjustments upon request. And as I've mentioned already, we have those application bursaries available if needed. I'll whiz quickly through the assessment criteria. These are all part of the brief, but just in terms of what we're looking for, you need to make sure the problem your innovation seeks to address is well defined, the actual solution is clear and feels achievable. The R&D focus and innovation of the project needs to be well articulated, and this is a question that actually has double weighting to it as well. So we need to be really clear what that innovation is. The proposed solution needs to have a strong commercial value and appropriate route to market. So some evidence that you're thinking about who the actual market is for your innovation and how it might achieve some commercial success or represent growth for your company. The project team needs to have strong leadership, range of skills and experience. I'm going to come back to a couple of points about team in a minute. The project management plan and approach to risk management needs to be appropriate. And again, that's another double-weighted question, just in terms of your ability to deliver the project. The request for CoSTAR support needs to be clear and reasonable, and there needs to be a clear rationale why CoSTAR support is required. I'm also going to come back to that in a moment as well. The project needs to be of clear value to the performance and screen sectors. Again, just making sure it's really clear why it's of value to the wider sector as well. That's a real advantage to your application. And we ask a specific question about your approach to social impact as well. That's really important to the CoSTAR programme. On that note, I'll also just mention that as part of the package of support, you also you also have access to some inclusion and sustainability training that we provide as well. That's another part of the support. And then the last thing I wanted to cover, last couple of things around timeline, I'll come to, but just in terms of tips for funding applications based on some of the previous calls we've seen, just to try and make it easier for you. So a couple of key things I would focus on based on our experience, as well as obviously answering the form and all the criteria I've just run through. The first thing I would say is just being really clear about what it is in this space, in innovation space, creative innovation. By its very nature, we're all doing things that are new and not necessarily been done before and not necessarily easy to articulate. And it's not uncommon to sometimes see what feel like really well-written applications and still, as an assessor, not familiar with a project, be a bit unclear about what it really is and to walk away not being clear on what the project is. So I would really focus on explaining what it is and what tangible outcomes might actually be. My biggest tip I would always say on this front is, if you have the opportunity and the time, if you write down what you think your project is and what you want to achieve, and get someone to read it who is sort of familiar with the industry but not familiar with your project, and get them to re-explain it back at you and see if they've got the hang of it, basically, because that I would always say is one of the best ways to make sure you're getting your idea across. The second thing is on team. I know it sounds obvious, but a strong team is just so important. And sometimes we do see, I'm happy to say we see some really fantastic, really high quality applications, and we always, have it can always be really difficult to make final decisions. We do take a sort of portfolio approach across the final selection that we take. That we do. They're all assessed independently as well. But at the end of the day, we need to be clear on what the project is, and having a really strong team can make the real difference. So just make sure that you're really making that sing in your application. And then the third thing is why this funding, and just being aware, as I've said, why CoSTAR is a particular is the right fit for you. We're not just a funder, as I've said. We're not here only to provide funding for innovation or R&D projects. A big part of our remit is around making sure that the infrastructure that we're offering is of benefit to industry. So it's that whole package of support. So just making sure that that's clear why why the CoSTAR funding is the right fit for you. And then the other thing is again, just highlighting the need to be clear about your commercial potential for your project as well. So those are my words of advice. I hope those are useful. Just based on the previous experience we've had around funding applications. My last slide, and then I'll just hand over to Miles and Johnny, is about the timeline. So the call is open at the moment. It closes on the 15th of December. And taking Christmas into account, we would aim to get back to you by 10 weeks of the project, of the deadline, about the projects that we're able to take forward and those that we aren't. And then the actual programme being live, projects must start after the 1st of March. They don't need to start on the 1st of March, but after that date, and be wrapped up by the 31st of July, and take approximately 12 weeks each. Okay, I will hand over now to Miles.
Thanks so much, Becky, and hello everybody. I'm Miles Burney. I'm co-head of innovation at CoSTAR and also at the National Film and Television School. Thanks so much for taking us through that, Becky. I'm just going to give you a little bit more detail on what's on offer at the National Lab as part of this call. We're going to talk about technical facilities, some of the research expertise, and then also just give you a sense of some of the context of the work that we've been doing into the applied research space that is connected to this call. Just for inspiration information, we hope, not to constrain ideas, but hopefully just to share some of the things we've been working on within the lab. So first and foremost, Becky referred to core part of CoSTAR funding really being about technical facilities and infrastructure. So this is all articulated in the brief as well, but just to kind of share again in the context of this webinar. A full virtual production studio with next generation audio, the details of which you can all access here. Good networking connectivity into that studio, and a bunch of other sort of peripheral devices to support more immersive exploration and R&D in that space. And importantly, AI compute facilities. So this is compute that's hosted at Surrey. And we're making available to any company that applies and is successful through the application process, good time on a fairly beefy cluster on that infrastructure. It's an academic GPU-based facility, so access to that is through a management system and scheduling system called SLURM. So there'll be an onboarding process for companies who are seeking access to that. Just to flag that it's not perhaps consumer GPU access that others might be familiar with already. So research expertise. So across the lab, spanning from Surrey University, Abertay University, Royal Holloway, and the National Film and Television School, we have a range of sort of expertise that's available for companies who are successful through the call to connect into and take advantage of, from Gen AI, UX, script writing, through to deep work on multi-sensory perception and business modeling. But also something that we're active within the National Lab is the idea of developing ideas at pace, sort of product development and innovation methodologies. And that's something that we're doing at the National Lab in the form of a always-on prototyping function, applied research function, where we're trying to push ideas forward that deeply connect with research going in within our core research institutions in ways that feel connected and relevant to the creative sector industry. So in order to do that, we have a prototyping team at the National Lab. It's a multidisciplinary team that brings together skills in AI, immersive, film, real time, along with sort of deep software engineering skills, product design and development methodologies, and agile development as well, with a sprinkling of UX. And really our job is to try and connect the research that's happening in our core institutions with industry need and making use of the infrastructure that's available at the National Lab as well. That's what we're all about. We're a team of around about 10 people, myself there on the left, and the range of skills I mentioned previously, from Johnny, who you're going to meet in a moment, who's our senior creative technologist, through to core software engineers, AI skills, game tech skill sets as well, and UX as well. So these are people that are focused on applied research at the lab currently. And the team's been up and running in its entirety for around about 9 months, perhaps a little bit longer. And just going to talk to a few of the things we've been working on as a team during that period. As I said, not to constrain ideas for applications, but just to give a bit of context and flavour to some of the things that we're really interested in this applied advanced production space. So we spent some time looking at Gaussian splats, which a number of you I'm sure will be familiar with. In particular, we've been diving into how that technology can be used and applied in animation. We started looking at 4D Gaussian splats, and we've moved sort of rode back from that to look at sort of 3D stock frame animations. And Johnny's going to give you a bit of an overview of some of the work we've been doing in that space in a moment. We're trying to connect all of our work with industry partners so that we're trying to focus in on real and meaningful challenge spaces or opportunities for industry. That's the case for the work we did in the Gaussian splat space. And again, Johnny's going to talk to that in a moment. We've also been looking at how AI can enhance and enrich live performance, seeing how we can connect AI at the speed of thought to support live performance. And in particular, we focused in on Dungeons and Dragons. We dug into that and then ran an industry workshop and seeking more collaboration on that with industry partners, hopefully in the future. So hopefully more on that to follow. One of our most recent pieces of work is looking at how AI transforms film production. We started trying to attempt some work with our Gaussian splat cycle and knowledge. We ran into some brick walls with it, so we pivoted to look at to see if we could achieve the same type of outputs using an AI pipeline. Predominantly thinking about how we can capture the digital likeness of some talent and then drive the animation of that character using motion extraction with the performance artists. But again, Johnny's going to give you much more detail on that in a moment. So as I said, not to constrain thinking, but just to give a flavour of some of the areas that we've been excited about and exploring, and aligned to Becky's slide earlier around sort of 2D capture, 3D capture, animation, AI in performance, AI in production. So I'm going to hand over to Johnny, who's going to give you a bit more of a flavour of the two either side, so the Gaussian splat piece and also the AI in film production. Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks, Miles. So hello, everyone. Some of you may know me already. Johnny Johnson, Senior Creative Technologist based at the National Film School also. Work within the prototyping team predominantly, along with a few other things within the National Lab. My day-to-day job is sort of thinking about how to tell, I think of it as telling stories with new technology. Lots of VR and VP supervision in the past. As most of you will be aware, AI is the thing. So in the last few years, it's leaned heavily into AI and how to merge the two. I've just got a couple of tasters here. I've really got a couple of minutes here to just give you a brief overview of a couple of projects. As Miles said, just to inspire you as to maybe some of the things, areas of research that we're interested in. It may not line up with what you're thinking about and your proposals, but it really is just an idea or a flavour. So the first project was to demo today. It was around stop motion for doing Gaussian splats. We think that nobody else that we've seen has applied this so far, even though it's been quite a while since we did this. So this is fairly cutting edge and ergo quite difficult to do. The idea was, could you take a Gaussian splat, a capture of an object, and then play that back as a sequence of frames? So a lot of the work here was about building that pipeline. Largely based around Unreal. Would Unreal handle the sequence? You can see here on the left, my sort of first test was just simply taking 33 frames of this Lego car as separate Gaussian splats and trying to build a simple pipeline in Unreal Sequencer. Once that was proven as working, you see it's quite messy there, but it sort of works as a demo. We went on to do a trailer of a production, which I'll show you in a second. And you can see I built a custom camera rig as part of that production to automate the capturing of the Gaussians. While I talk, I've got a little demo trailer here. There is more. You can see this in full on the CoSTAR Substack blog post page. So you can see here some clips that I've cut together. It's quite a short piece that just shows what stop motion animation looks like. So we did a week's worth of capturing this character. The animator was changing the stop motion. You can see here is the platform that we placed it on, and the camera is rotating automatically around it. And you can see here in this clip some of the post work. A lot of the renders were done with PostShot, which is a widely available Gaussian splat render software we recommend. And then each one of those was taken into that Unreal sequence to make the animation. It was quite difficult and challenging because a lot of the tools aren't designed to do sequences of Gaussian splats, but proof of concept practice, certainly here, and this is what we try to do with our R&D projects. And then very briefly, much more recent, I have a personal interest in AI filmmaking in particular and where that's going. So as Mars intimated, looking at the idea was, could we take a performance from somebody and abstract it onto a digital avatar of somebody else? An actor, say, was our use case. But should you be in the middle of a shoot and an actor become unavailable? Could you simulate or generate synthetic content based on that person? So what we wanted to do was go from the source image of the actor, in this case our producer. We did a lot of research around the ethics and legalities of this as a side note, but our producer volunteered to perform in this, or be the digital representation, the avatar you can see. In early R&D on this, building pipelines based on WAN 2.1 at the time, which was the best open source video generator when this started back in April, May time. Trying to get the idea here for me was, how can I get from similar-ish looking content to very, very high quality, full HD, accurate representation of the actor? That was the main goal here. So I'm building pipelines through ComfyUI to achieve that goal. And here again is just some clips of the film. And then also there'll be a bit of behind the scenes. And what we're doing here is we're taking a performer in a normal space with a video camera, another person entirely, recording their motion data movements, and then with an image of the actor, our producer Cody here, who is dressed appropriately for the scene, we are driving the AI video. As you can see here in the side-by-side, our performance actor is just in a normal space being filmed normally, and then we're saying to the AI, can you take that performance and put it in any scenario? In the next few days, we're going to publish this video, the behind the scenes and some of the workflows. So those of you who are technically or creatively inclined and interested in how it works within ComfyUI, a lot of this work will be made available to you in the near future. As you can see here, just the top left is the original performance. The middle left is the abstracted data from that window. And then you saw the full video. And here's just an example from the behind the scenes of the costume dressing tool that we needed to dress the actor appropriately for every scene. So relatively convoluted series of tools and pipelines built here, which we are going to open source. And you could build your own tools and pipelines on top of this, or in similar areas with tools like ComfyUI, which is the emerging space in this area. Okay, that's my bit done. I'm going to hand back to Becky.
Great, thanks, Johnny. So hopefully that was a useful overview, first of all, of the call and what we're looking for, but we wanted to take the opportunity to just sort of give a bit of an overview of some of the things we're doing, just so you can get to know us and our team a little bit better, and the work that's relevant to this call in particular. So I think we'll hand over now to you. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and I think Bonnie is going to host this part of the session for us.
Yes, so does anybody have, there's nothing in the Q&A box at the moment. Oh, there is one question. I recognise this name. I think Mo came to our workshop. If you feel comfortable to ask your own questions, please do. If you're able now to come on camera, unmute yourself. It would be lovely.
Who do you mean? Sorry, Bonnie.
Mohammed Ezra has asked a question. I also just mean in general, if people would like to put their cameras on so they can see us. If not, I'm more than happy to read the question out.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
First, thank you for your good presentation. It's a brilliant presentation, and nice to see you again. I got several questions, so I start putting on that. The first one is regarding the eligibility of the company. You said that the company should be in the UK and trading. But we just registered a new company and then a subsidiary company in the name of our project, and we have the parent. It's a parent and a child company. Now, which one is eligible to apply for this project?
Are they both? Sorry, are they both based in the UK, or one of them is
both
not
in the UK? Yeah, both. But the child is new and not trading yet.
I would imagine from what you're saying, the parent company might be the better one. But if you have a specific question with some specifics, perhaps if we can put the pilot our email in the chat, our piloting email, it might be if it's a specific question, we might be able to answer it specifically over email if there's a nuance to it. But from if it's not trading yet, I would say probably the parent company might be the better.
Okay, thank you. And the second one is about your ad hoc support. Is there any support for the IP registration? For example, access to a legal advisor who can help us to prepare necessary documents for registering the IP, which I know you got Jack and team.
Do you mean as part of the project?
As part of the project.
As part of the project. If there's that's a good question. And well done, you've asked me one that I've not heard before, so that's good. I'm just thinking about it. I think that's an interesting one. I think I'm not sure or whether or not that would be an obvious part of your project cost. There's some detailed project allowable costs in the full brief. I'm not sure if that's sort of explicitly mentioned in terms of legal cost to register IP. To be honest, I think I would have to check that one. It might be possible that there's different kind of support for that sort of thing available through the sister program around enterprise and commercialization. So I'd want to check that out. But otherwise, I mean, you could put it as a line within your project costs that you asked for as part of your application, but I would need to check on the eligibility of that. So if you like, if you could pop that in an email to us as well, we can check that out for sure. And what we would do then is we would add this as one of our FAQs to our webpage. So this is available for everybody to see the answer to.
Okay, thank you. And the last one is the range of TRL innovation that you expect from our project, and do you need us to develop an agentic AI system or just building something, or we can build something using ConfUI, using existing AI models?
I'm going to throw that to Miles or Johnny on that.
Yeah. We're not specific about, the state. We're looking to help people move the research towards commercialization. So that's as relevant to early stage research as it is to, near to market research. So I think anything that the National Lab can support in terms of that journey, we're interested in. Just I think us understanding how we can help clearly with that sort of development and migration path, I think is really helpful for us in assessment, when we come to assess. Your other question specifically around agentic, no, not at all. Like we aren't prescriptive around, the use of AI even. We're just looking for interesting ideas that fit in that sort of broad category of applied research. We've given some flavors of the things that we're interested in, but as I said earlier, please don't be constrained by that. Our ideas aren't necessarily by any means the best ideas, but hopefully that was just sort of a stimulus so people can understand some of the things we're curious about at the moment. But we aren't limited to our current curiosities.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's clear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We've had a question from Gabriel just around clarifying the timeline. Gabriel, what were you unsure about on the timeline, if you're there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. And
Hi.
hi, Becky. We spoke earlier this year. Yeah, so you said very quickly that the timeline is 12 weeks, but then you also specified that there will be there's a lagging start date or a kind of flexible start date. So do the projects absolutely have to be in a 12-week sprint, or can it be can it be longer than that with a flexible start date and
I would say there's a bit of flexibility to it. So the start and end are fairly fixed, as in there's a sort of the earliest start and the latest end. I think of it like that, I suppose. And we notionally say we expect them to be projects on the smaller side. So we're not. I've occasionally seen an application that has maybe overlooked that and put that it's a 9-month project or something. So just do pay attention to those earliest start and latest end. But if it's not exactly 12 weeks, but it fits within that window, then that should be fine.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sorry, I had one other quick question which is related to this. what exactly needs to be delivered at the end? Does it need to be a fully deployed system with pilots, or can it be a functional prototype, an MVP, and yeah,
it could be either of those. Yeah, it could be either of those. I think as long as you can sort of, it's useful in the application to see sort of what you're building from. So what have you got already, and how does this take it to the next stage, and why is that, you know, what you need to do next? But in terms of exactly what it needs to look like, that would be dependent on the project and what stage you're at.
But any sort of clarity you can give around that, Gabriel, in terms of like, this is where we're at currently, and through this program, this is where we're trying to get to, as a sort of, you know, this is our destination. This is where we'd really like support trying to get to. It's really helpful.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
You're not tied to that. That must deliver said objective, but you know, it's how we can support you get towards that as much as possible.
Amazing. Great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. Excellent question. We've had a question from Patrick. Are you able to share a little more information on your script writing expertise and assistance?
That's a good question. To be honest, we're not, those of us on the call are not brilliantly placed to add a lot of detail on that. If there's something specific you're interested in, though, that's something we can follow up with, and we can find the right person to answer. Is there something particular you need support with?
Yeah, so the project I'm thinking of proposing includes some script writing within it, and you mentioned that was one of the expertises that you guys had. So yeah, I'd just be fascinated to know, maybe offline, you know, if you have writers there, where they're based, and you know what sort of things they've done before. That would be really useful to know.
Okay, yeah. So we have research. We have sort of script writing and storytelling researchers to pull on. If there are specific writers that you need on the project, we don't necessarily have those in our team, but we're always able. It's an area we're always able to help link people up with if it's of use. But yeah, if there's a specific if you drop us a question as well, if it's a specific thing, then we can make sure somebody can answer that for you.
Yeah, we'll do. And I have one other quick one, actually, a technical one. If there was mixing audio in Dolby Atmos that was needed, is that's something you could do at Royal Holloway with your 7.14 speaker system? Could you bring a Pro Tools MacBook down and connect it up and mix something in Dolby Atmos within that room? Do you know?
Question. Do you know, Johnny?
So it's not set up out of the box for Dolby Atmos. There is a suite up at the NFTS for that sort of thing, but I think for a CoSTAR facility, we're not quite there on that. But there is a full set of sound researchers who are very advanced knowledge and doing cutting edge stuff, and it is set up for a unique spacious surround system. So I think we would need to deliver that question to them a bit further if it was to proceed with you, and you had a full surround experience or project you wanted to investigate. I suspect it's possible, but not set up for it right now, I think. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Actually, if I can follow up, actually, because that does remind me of a question we do get sometimes. So we have the details of the facilities that we have available at the moment are on the website. I think they might be part of the full brief as well, but they're certainly available there. If your project requires a facility or a particular bit of infrastructure, I suppose, that we don't have, but so there's two cases. If we don't have it, but for example, you believe another network within the CoSTAR lab does have it, then that's something you can flag with us, and we can investigate whether or not we can provide that within the project. If it's something that CoSTAR can't offer or can't be done at another lab for some reason, then that needs to be part of your project costs that you would cost in, just for clarity. So it just because we don't have it doesn't mean you can't. It's not eligible. It just means it would have to be costed in as part of the project.
Yeah.
Great.
Brilliant. Thank you. We've had a question from James. James, if you're there, can we apply if we work in advertising, brackets, TV commercials and online content?
Yes, I would say you can. Yeah. If it's online, well, yeah. I don't think we're prescriptive about that sector specifically. I think what we want to see ideally is production it all has to be sort of a part of content production, which, as we know, is very broad. But insofar as possible, if it's applicable to different parts of the sector, particularly if you can show that, then that's always an advantage as well. But yes, you are eligible to apply.
Amazing, thank you.
Thanks very much. Question from Toby. Toby, if you're there, what does a strong justification for support look like versus a weak one?
Justifications for support oh, I see. So that's a good question. To be honest, I think the strongest justifications, I think, would be one, as I said, is just making sure you're clear on why this funding makes sense in that sort of package that we've talked about. Because sometimes, for example, you do see projects that look like perfectly good, reasonable projects, but perhaps actually that they don't require the kind of support we're offering, and actually a different kind of funder would be a better fit. I think the other thing is being clear on what and on how this will accelerate your project, why you need the support and you can't achieve it on your own. What is it that's holding you back, and how will this help you? And making that clearer, that gives one of the stronger answers, I think, because sometimes you can see perfectly good, feasible projects. You just need to understand why this particular package will help it move along, and it can't do that on its own or through any other means. Hope that's helpful.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much. I just have one more question for EDI/sustainability. Do you have any examples of what demonstrable engagement looks like for a tech platform?
So I don't have any sort of clear examples off the top of my head, but I think there's some information, more detailed information about this in the full brief, about pointers to think about. But it includes things like, do you have explicit policies? Do you have how do you consider this in the way you put teams together? For example, around inclusion, where it comes to sustainability, what is your approach, your policy? Do you do any carbon calculations at the moment? I think just bringing out the examples of what you are actively doing in your company on either of those fronts is a good start, rather than, I think, sort of generic statements of these being of importance to your company is good, but I think showing tangible ways that you engage with it is what we're looking for.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Right.
Brilliant. Johnny, this one is specifically for you. It's a question from Ian. With reference to the actor replacement test, how close to real time is that transition from the live action footage to the AI images?
Okay, sorry to disappoint you, Ian, but it's not real time at all. It wasn't the approach was high quality cinematic footage. So just to give you, without blowing away with technical details, that this isn't appropriate format for that. It's, you capture your footage, you can do a lot of shooting very quickly because there's no lighting and no sound to wait for necessarily. So we did a lot of shooting very quickly. You turn around that into a low res render of a short clip that would take maybe 2 minutes for a 5 to 10 second clip. And then to really get up to full HD, you're talking about an hour per clip, and you never quite know what you're going to get because it's AI lucky dip. So it could be quite a lot of time. So just to give you a broad overview, we ended up with a 4-minute film you're able to see on the website in the next few days, and that took something around 600 to 800 hours of production time to put together. So by no means is AI easy if you're looking for quality. There are opportunities for real time that would be probably quite of interest to us if there was, you're looking at AI in real time as an idea, not leaning in any direction, but that's an interesting area for sure that is relatively underexplored. Miles, you want to add anything to that?
No, just heavy lifting, right, Johnny? There's a lot of work, and of course some of that compute cycle time that Johnny was referencing there is aided by what kind of compute you can throw at that problem space, and of course the Surrey compute offering plays well in that space.
Hopefully that answered your question, Ian. Do say if not.
Cool. Let's so the next question, we've already answered that one. This one has been posted anonymously, so I will just read it out unless anyone would like to claim it. Another department in my organization is having a conversation with Abate about doing a project up there in their real-time space, not part of the call. Would that jeopardize our chances with this call, i.e. double dipping with CoSTAR support?
Good question. People are very good at coming up with questions I've not heard before. No, that's it is a good thing to raise, because you will be asked as part of the application if you have any reason to believe you have any conflict of interest or anything like that. And if your organisation was already in receipt of, for example, funding, then it's possible, but it doesn't completely it doesn't rule it out either. I would say, without knowing the details, it's hard to know for sure, but I wouldn't assume that makes it ineligible. If a different part is getting support in a different way for a different project, this will be completely independently assessed from that. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem. But if you have a question, then again, the piloting email, if you're worried about any kind of conflict of interest and are able to share more details over that before, and it's best to check that before you go through doing a whole form and everything, because we don't want to waste anybody's time. So if you have any specific questions and can give us some details, then please send us an email. But yeah, hopefully it would be okay depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I don't think that's a problem, but if you've got a query, the more detail we have to save you kind of getting into the depths of an application process, do send that on, or we can give you more tailored advice. But yeah, you mentioned there that's not part, anonymous mentions there, but it's not part of a call. So, I can't see why that would be an impediment at all. But do send through the details and we can confirm that.
Great. Hope that answers your question, anonymous. The next question, I think Gabriel already asked about what needs to be delivered, so we've covered that one. Another anonymous question, our project aims are very similar to the work you spoke about using UE. Is there an issue our project overlap or are too similar?
I think Mars, you're a better place to answer that one. But UE is Unreal Engine for those who are unaware.
Thank you. I wasn't sure. So
no, I mean, no issue at all. So we have this prototyping function. We try and connect all our work with real industry challenges. We try and look for collaborators on our work to try and make that happen. Someone coming in with a really, very specific industry opportunity and challenge that sits in that space would certainly not rule any application out. So yeah, don't be discouraged by proximity to the work we're doing. It's good to hear some sort of confirmation of other people interested in similar work. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. A question from Caroline. Hello, Caroline. We are currently in early development on our product/project. Does that matter in regards to the starting date?
Does that mean, I'm not sure I understand completely, does that mean that you might be too early in the project for it to line up? I'm not completely sure I understand.
Hi, I'm Caroline.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi. Yes, exactly. So we're in early development currently. We're testing hardware at the moment, but we're still a few months away from having something that would require us to go into a studio and actually test it. So in terms of the dates lining up, March actually would work perfectly for us. But I just wanted to check that the project itself didn't have to have a start date of March, that we can be doing some early R&D prior to that.
Oh, I see. So you mean that actually the project you want to almost start the project earlier, if you like, as in you're already doing it, but Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm just trying to understand exactly what your parameters are around the dates, whether it has to be something that's just conception prior to like just, you know, a thought project prior to starting the physical project itself in March.
Yeah, I think from what you said, I think that sounds fine. I think I would probably try and maybe you just would need to make clear that try and put some boundaries, I suppose, around the specific bit of project that this is going to fund and when it's going to be. Perhaps, and call, you know, that's a sub project. That's the one that CoSTAR, for example, would support. And you can say, you know, it's part of a bigger thing, but it's probably helpful to try and put some boundaries around it, because again, just in terms of advice for the application, when assessors come to it and they're not familiar with it, if it's unclear, like, is the project this big or is it this big, and when does it start, then it just makes it harder to assess. But so if you're just, it's fine for it to be part of a bigger thing. In fact, we expect projects to be part of a bigger initiative, and, you know, this is not fully funding any one huge, you know, product development, but just putting those boundaries around what section of it this application is for is what's useful.
That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. Next question is from Sarah, or Sarah, apologies if I've mispronounced that. Reimbursement costs. Are there any costs associated with the use of the CoSTAR facilities or R&D staff?
So the CoSTAR facility and the expertise are in kind, are delivered in kind. So you don't need to, as part of your budgeting, put, you know, studio time, for example, at the Future Studio. That's part of the package. I think, and with that studio, there comes sort of basic technical operations support, but it doesn't have a crew, for example. You know, if you're coming into the studio, most of the core part of the crew would need to be in your team and budgeted for within that team. And we'd, you know, once the company's selected, we'd go through a more detailed sort of onboarding, making sure everyone's got the right people, and that all lines up. But in terms of the actual studio space and certainly the research expertise, that's all in kind.
Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Yes, it does. Hello, thank you.
Great. Fantastic, thanks. Another question from Gabriel. What metrics or success criteria will you use to evaluate the project?
In terms of the, is that in terms of the application or the end project, end goal? Is that, I can answer both.
Yeah, both. If you have answers for both, then both.
Yeah. So for the application, all of those sorry, words escaped me. But the criteria I ran through and that are all part of the brief. There's sort of 10 criteria. That's what we score against, and there's one or two of those that are double weighted, but we score against those, and we and that forms part of the bulk of the process. And then we'll make a sort of portfolio judgment to make sure we're just getting that range between the final selection, and then but the projects themselves. In terms of deliverables, I mean, we will agree with you up front what the sort of milestones will be throughout the project, but there's only 2 or 3. There's, I think, usually a midpoint and an endpoint milestones to make sure that you're delivering what you said you would. In terms of success of the project, what we ultimately would be doing is keeping in touch. We will always be following up. So we'll be gathering data. So anybody who's ever had any kind of public funding before will know there will be forms for you all to fill in to collect some data that we need for you to be for us to be tracking where the funding is going and the impact it's having. So we'll be collecting some information from you at the end, but in terms of exactly the success of that project, that will look different for each project. So we're not really there to necessarily we're not there to decide whether or not the project has been a success or not. What we want to do following the end of it is to track you and continue to support you if we can, to go forward with your project and see where it takes you. But yeah, we're not there to at the end of it to decide if it's been a success or not. That's ultimately for you to take your project on after the end of the CoSTAR project. Does that answer the question?
Just to add to that, Eva, so obviously we'd like to hear in the applications what the sort of aspirations are, but we fully understand that R&D by its nature is sometimes one step forward, a couple of steps backwards. So, you know, sometimes that's part of success, you know, realizing that you need to pivot and change direction. So, you know, it's not necessarily beholden to some pre-described, you know, end state sunlit uplands. We understand the R&D process.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Great. The questions just keep flying in. We've got a question from Chris. Hello, Chris. Great press, guys. Could I ask if there will be any future funding grants similar to this one? Or this is a two-part question. So this is part one, e.g. Gaussian splatting pipelines for virtual production studios. So any future funding grants similar to this?
I'd say at this point, I couldn't guarantee that. So CoSTAR, we are partway through our initial phase of CoSTAR. There's about three and a half more years to go with it. So there definitely will be further calls coming out. Exactly what themes they will have will be determined as we go along in consultation with industry and depending on trend and where we see the industry need. You know, also if we have an enormous response to this one and we can see that there's a huge amount of appetite in the area, then we might consider running something again. But I wouldn't guarantee it at this point. So if this feels like a good fit for you, then I would encourage you to throw your hat in the ring if the timing is right for you, because I don't know that we'll have one exactly like this again. But there will be other calls from CoSTAR for sure, coming from our lab and from the other labs around in the next 3 or more years.
Yeah, you know, this seems very aligned to that interest. So Gaussian splat pipelines for virtual production seems super aligned. So I don't know if Chris is available just to, you know, to understand a little bit why later would be better. Otherwise, you know, this does feel aligned. So if you could apply for this one and you have that interest and the idea is developed enough, then if you've got the capacity, I'd apply for this one if you could.
Go for it, Chris. Second part of the question was, if the future studio facilities are not required, does that affect the eligibility?
Not necessarily. I think that there's a broad package on offer, from the future studio to the AI compute facility to the research expertise and funding. I think we'd be looking to, as I say, we're looking for projects that we can support with that package, and infrastructure is quite a key part of it. So I think if all, so to be blunt about it, if all your project needed from us was funding, it probably wouldn't be a great fit. It would probably be another funder, you know, albeit I know funding is hard to come by at the moment. I'm cognizant of that. But if it was purely funding, it probably wouldn't be a brilliant fit for this particular call. But if you don't happen to need that studio at that time, but maybe you need another facility, or it's more the expertise that you need access to help to take you in a new direction, then that's fine. You don't need to use everything out of the package. You don't need to sort of don't feel like you need to tick every single box, but yeah, it wouldn't, if it was only funding, it might not be the best fit.
I mean, for example, the work that Johnny showed around the AI and film production, you know, so we didn't use our studio for that, but we did lean into our compute facilities for some of the training on that. So yeah, it's you don't have, as Becky says, it's not all the boxes, but we'd like to understand how this infrastructure that's provided by the National Lab, you know, helps move you in the direction you're trying to get to.
I can just add, I presume from Chris works at another VP studio in Soho, so he'd probably be looking to do the production facility part of it at that studio. That's probably where that question's coming from.
Thanks, Johnny. Great. Question from Phil. Is there a preference for a specific project within a company, i.e. a subpart of what our company is solving, or could it be the actual product that we are developing at the company-wide level?
I think it could be either. I think.
Yeah, either.
I don't see why it wouldn't be either, depending on what, where you feel the biggest need is for your company. Yeah.
Okay, just coming back to that point about just trying to articulate specifically how this can help move things materially forward, and if that's applicable at the higher, macro level, then that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. Another question on reimbursement. Subcontractors can be paid at 100%. How does this work in respect to the funding level of the overall project costs?
I'm afraid I don't quite follow the question. I don't know if someone's there to.
No, I don't. Sorry, are you able to explain that?
Sorry. What I'm wondering is, in your call document, you explain that the subcontractors can be reimbursed at 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But that is different from the reimbursement level of the project cost overall.
Is that due to the size of the company?
No. So if I go to your main call document, eligible costs, allowable company costs, subcontractors can be paid at 100%. But I don't understand how that works with the funding level of a company, which depends on the company size and everything else.
So I'm sorry, I'm looking as well, but subcontractors can be paid at 100%. But why is that inconsistent with? I think I'm missing maybe the detail.
So okay, say I have a subcontractor that I pay £10,000.
Yeah.
And the cost of the subcontractor is £10,000.
Yeah.
But the grant from CoSTAR will reimburse 50% of my costs.
Why would it only reimburse 50%?
Because I am a large organization and I only get 50% as a funding level. So does it mean I can pay from the grant money £10,000 to the subcontractor, or I can only pay 50% of that to the subcontractor?
I think I would need. Thank you. I understand your question now.
Thanks.
I think that I believe that would mean that the cost going to you, if you're the lead company and you're the large company, then the cost going to you might be at 50%, but that the subcontractor you might be able to claim all of the subcontractor costs, possibly. But I don't want to give you an absolute answer without checking that out, because I need to check a detail about that with our legal team. So if you're able, sorry, I didn't see who that was. Is that
Sarah?
Sarah, if you're able to drop us a line about it, I'll get you a clear answer on that, because that's important information. I understand.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Becky. A question from Mark, who is unfortunately not able to turn on his camera. Do all key members of the team have to be based in the UK?
You need a project team that is predominantly based in the UK. If you have some collaborators, key collaborators who are not based in the UK, and there's a good reason it needs to be those collaborators, then that is usually fine. Ultimately, the rules are there. To be pragmatic about it, the rules are there because this is UK public funding, and the main beneficiaries have to be based in the UK. So rules are there to sort of prevent a company sort of having a a presence in name, but actually doing most of the work, outsourcing most of the work abroad that could be done in the UK. But if you have some collaborators that are based externally, and there's a reason for that, then that's usually fine. But we just would need clarity on that, so we can be sure that most of the funding is going to the UK.
Becky. Amy said she'll come on camera. Come and ask your questions, Amy.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
So I've got a bunch of questions, and I apologize if you've sort of, I think you've already kind of explained this one. I just wanted to double check. So will our application be weighted more if you have a prototype in place already, as opposed to a good proof of concept?
No, not necessarily. I think it's very useful to, in any event, to understand what's gone before and what, if anything, this is building on. It's useful, apart from anything else, it helps to show your track record and what you've done. But if it is a new project that you haven't been able to do before, and this would help unlock an opportunity, then that's absolutely fine as well. Just be clear about what's gone before and what this will do.
Amy, this touches on the question that was asked before around TRL levels, so technology readiness levels, for those that haven't come across that acronym before. Yeah, so all levels are of interest. It's more about just being clear about the ambition and how access to the National Lab through this process can help move it forward.
I would also add, sorry, as well as what's gone before, if this is your first proof of concept that you'd like to develop as part of it, showing in your application again that you're quite clear on where you are hoping to get to and what your plan is for what happens next, as part of that sort of question about commercialization and growth. That's really important as well. So if just showing that you've got that sort of plan in mind for where you want to take it afterwards.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So my next question is the written form the only selection stage? Is the application form the only selection stage, or are there interviews and follow-up sessions after that?
Yeah, there's it is the only selection stage. If there's no interview stage, if we feel for any reason that there is as part of the process there's something missing or we need to verify with you, we would be in contact for any additional information that we need. But no, there's no interview stage.
Right. And then final question is the 4K travel budget separate from the 4K project budget, or is it part of the main project budget?
It's the 4K travel stipend is separate from your from the main project budget, but just read the fine print again. It's in the brief document, but that's available for people. It's there to help us to reach the whole UK wherever we can. So if just make sure that your travel costs are eligible for that stipend, as in you're far enough away, or the travel is far enough away from the lab, and any other travel that's not eligible, you would need to put in your main project budget. So if it's not eligible to be part of the stipend, you can put travel within your project budget, but just make sure that's in there to cover anything that's not.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. Those are my questions.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay. Next question. A little bit of
I can take this, Bronnie.
Go for it. Do you want to read it out, Miles, as well?
Anonymous. We're exploring how to adapt our existing CG production expertise into a more converged workflow that supports interactive formats such as games, specifically looking at technical innovation in our asset pipelines to enable real-time use cases. Would a project focused on developing this capability with a clear commercial growth opportunity be considered eligible under this call? Yes. Yeah, it would be. So this, one of the things we've been grappling with in a number of our areas of exploration, some of which we outlined earlier, was take, for example, the Gaussian splat work. We were basically building in immersive 3D, and the showcase of that was a flat 2D film. So we're kind of curious about weaving some of that production into more immersive experiences as well. It sounds like you're thinking of similar opportunities and challenges in that space. So yeah, that sounds like it aligns well.
Great, thanks,
I've
Miles.
asked the question, Anonymous. Feel free to come back with more questions if it didn't.
I think the next question we've sort of touched on a little bit, but it's around the level of support offered by the CoSTAR team, and do we need to budget for this within our application? So, for example, if we have a particular technical skills gap in our project team, can we cite this as a reason why we especially want to work with CoSTAR?
I think that really depends what it is, and it depends if it's something we have or not, I suppose. Because yeah, if there's expertise that you believe we have from what we've put online and described from our team, then yes, that's absolutely something that we might support with and provide in kind. If it's a very specific technical role to work as part of the project, it might not necessarily be something we have. I think there are some limitations. I think again it's in the brief around the amount of time. So if it's very specific or it's for a very long period of time, it might not be something we can offer. So I think if there are really core dependencies for your project, depending on what it is, it might be safest to put it in as part of your project and costs. And if it's something that we can support with, then we would. If you're not sure and it makes that difficult to do the application, again, I would drop us a line with some specifics. If you're looking for a specific technical area and you're not sure if it's something we have or not, then yeah, just drop us a line and we'll answer that.
There's a second part to that question, Bronnie, as well, asking as well about IP.
Yeah, who then owns the technical IP coming out of the project? Is the follow-on to that?
The company's own will own their own IP. They obviously their background IP and CoSTAR background IP would be available but protected, but the IP generated belongs to the company.
Yeah, so support from research expertise is, think of it as offered in sort of consultancy for you to help focus and shape, the development of your IP.
Great, thanks both. The next question is another subcontracting question. Trevor, are you there? Just because it's quite a long question, and to save you having to listen to me read it out, if you're comfortable, do you want to come on and ask your question? Or
yes, of course. Hello. Thanks for that presentation. This was just one about the definition of subcontractor, really, and how narrow or wide it is, because I'll be spinning up a team for this potentially. And is it just kind of other limited companies, or is it, if it's not PAYE, it's definitely a subcontractor?
Yes, I think I can answer that one. So you'll be pleased to know it's fairly broad, because we understand projects look very different. In some cases it may be companies, in other cases it might be you needing to spin up a crew, or to do a shoot or something, and a lot of those are could be sole traders. So yeah, it's reasonably broad. The important thing is, I think, that the lead company needs to be can't be a sole trader or anything, it needs to be a company. But yeah, besides that, the definition of freelancers is and subcontractors is quite broad.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Trevor. Question from Adrian. Can the lead applicant be a partnership, e.g. two micro production companies working together on a project?
You can absolutely work as two companies. Two companies can be in collaboration as part of the project. I think you will need to have one. You'll need to decide who is the lead applicant that we're ultimately going to contract with, and the funding is going to flow through and is going to would manage the grant. So I think you need to select a lead applicant, and then work out between you how you manage that relationship. But absolutely, we sort of expect there to be collaborations as part of the teams that apply to us.
Yes, so do feel free to put that information in the application. Two companies, collaboration, but one effectively applying. But yeah, no problems with that.
Great. I hope that answers your question, Adrian. Question from Nick. I've just finished the first cohort of the CoSTAR Ideate program, congratulations, which opened a lot of new ideas and workflow possibilities. I'm based in Belfast. Would I be able to work in part from the CoSTAR Screen Lab, or does it need to be specific labs in the brief?
So for this one, I would say that's a possibility. So we would look into that essentially, because this call is hosted by the National Lab. So we know that we have committed resource and time and facilities available for this call. So we know that we can provide that for companies applying. If you have a need, like this is a good example, like another need, a different CoSTAR lab, then we would look into we would speak to our partners at Screen Lab and look to support that if it was a project that we wanted to take forward. So yeah, I would just make that clear in terms of, I think there's a section on what you're requesting from CoSTAR. If you'd like to request something specific from a different lab, feel free to put that in there and with your reasoning, and we would look at that.
Thanks very much. It's just on an environmental and jetting backwards and forwards to you, sort of more process.
Makes sense.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. A question from Helen. For projects combining creative R&D with accessibility innovation, what level of technical detail is expected in the application versus the contracting stage?
Can I add to that, if that's okay?
Please do, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to find out a little bit more about the support you provide for a patent pending application that's already been tested. A lot of things happened during the test that I'm so glad that I came across this support, really. So there's some things in the back end that needs further development, but I wanted to find out really the support that is available for something that's already started and has tested, but needs far more testing, but sits within an ecosystem that you provide that allows this development and testing to happen, and me to maintain IP before I suppose I approach more national rollouts performance-wise. Does that make any sense? I hope it does.
Yeah, I think so. Miles, do you want to answer?
Yeah, sounds like no problems there, Helen. From what you described, as per I think we had some earlier questions that were more curious about the very early stage idea development. That's totally applicable. Sounds like you're right at the other end of that sort of spectrum. Patent pending and applications in, and looking to refine based on some learnings and maybe some challenges you've run into, or a slight pivot in terms of opportunities. Absolutely great. Tell us all about that, and how to come back to how access to the National Lab through this program and the infrastructure available and some of the expertise, helps you make that next step.
Okay, I also wanted just a little bit of some clarity in terms of the access. So the platform really exists to make live performances more accessible to neurodiverse, blind and deaf audiences. But to what extent do you need the details of the access that it provides, and the access that I'm hoping to engage with and test with you in terms of immediate AI responses?
I think just helping us understand how we can support, is the concern there about sort of sharing that information, the state you're in at the moment, sharing that, Helen, or what's the concern there in terms of the visibility of some of that information?
Yeah, I suppose it's the visibility of some of the information. I don't know how widely it will be disseminated before the patent pending results come in, and how much you would need me to share with you in order for you to make an informed decision, and of course to understand what it is that I'm trying to achieve.
I think it's just that tipping point, us getting enough information. I mean, of course, the application process is all under that sort of NDAs, so there's no risks or concerns there. Obviously, you'll have a level of comfort about what you want to share in the application process in terms of the absolute level of detail. but just giving us enough information to understand, the opportunity, the challenge you're facing, and how this access can unlock, a step change. Some of that is really what we need to hear. The more detail we have, the better, but I totally understand the sensitivities. So, you don't have to go into all of the details that you have concerns about, but just about that tipping point for us to understand it well enough, I think.
I would say if there's something you're uncomfortable sharing, then make a note of that. That you have information, you can provide further information about this. But it's patent pending that you're obviously concerned about sharing it broadly. And if it's something that we feel we need some clarity on as part of the application, we would open a dialogue with you. But indeed, if it got to the next stage and we were contracting anyway, it would be a different kettle of fish anyway, I think, at that point. But yeah, so I think, as much information as you can share so we can understand what it is and why it's innovative and where you want to go with it. But if you're something you're not comfortable with, that's absolutely fine. You can just state that in your application form. Thanks for the question.
Great, thanks, Helen. So I'm just conscious of time. We've got about 5 minutes left, and from my count, we've got about 4 more questions. I think the other ones have been addressed, so let's try and get through them. Question from Tom. In extension to projects exploring production pipelines, are you also interested in projects specifically bringing improvement to post-production pipelines?
Yes, all of the above. So we gave some examples that were just illustrative, but we're interested in end-to-end production chain work, no restrictions on particular phases.
And that could also in just the production side, if there's innovation around the shooting and capturing of data or content, totally fine, as well as the more common post side of things and AI VFX and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, as Mar says, anything you think there's innovation in R&D is good.
Brilliant, thank you.
We like all of it.
Thumbs up. Question from Gavin. We're exploring shooting a proof of concept pilot for a mixed media television program that would have traditionally been produced using standard technology, but we think it may be suitable for a new innovative pipeline based on a virtual production approach. Is that type of project what you are looking for?
I would say yes. It definitely sounds up the street of CoSTAR. The only thing I would just caution about this, about any applications, is so we're aware we exist at a funny nexus between tech innovation and content making, the funding, the remit that we have from our funder is very much around the innovation with emerging technologies side of it. So just be wary if you're making it, just the way you described it around a pilot for mixed media television. Just be wary you don't make it sound like it's you want to make a pilot TV show, if you see what I mean, that just happens to use some interesting tech. Just make sure it's really clear that you're majoring on what the technical innovation and those products or new services or something that could be expanded. That's the focus of the project. And yes, it's absolutely fine that as part of that you might make a pilot, a piece of content that would demonstrate how that could work. But just make sure that R&D and tech innovation feels like the focus of it. I hope that's helpful. I hope that makes sense.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so scalability beyond any given production, I think, is something to draw out if it's all possible.
Thank you both. Amy, I think we've answered your questions when you came on camera, so I'm gonna skip over those, but do shout if not. Just going to jump to a question from Benjamin. Assuming the product needs to be a pre-commercial innovation to qualify, what would you deem commercial activity? Is the company able to seek early adoption users during the program period?
Yes.
Yeah,
I would
that's
say.
nice and easy one, definitely.
Yeah,
that would show a good trajectory.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yes, we as I think we've tried to stress, we're really interested in where you want to take it commercially, and if finding early users as part of that, then we actually really encourage that. So no problem there.
Great. Another question about equipment. Is buying equipment like a portable workstation, e.g. a high specs laptop, which is needed full time for project development, an eligible cost?
That is a slightly tricky one. I think it's not. I don't think I'm not sure. I would actually have to check a detail on my end. I don't think it's necessarily completely ineligible if it's really key. But I think we'd need to know why there are some sort of fundamental building blocks you couldn't fund from elsewhere. If that's something, I think it's difficult, because if we're saying we're funding a sort of a notionally 12-week project, but actually it's a piece of equipment that is actually key to your work in general and way beyond the life of the project, then I think you could argue that that's difficult to justify as part of this project cost. But if there's a strong reason that that's not something that you have access to, then we can look into that, and we might also look to see if it's something that we might be able to provide through our infrastructure. So I think it's a slightly hazy one, the laptops. I think, but in general, hiring or accessing some additional equipment is generally fine.
We're offering compute facilities as part of this infrastructure, and there's obviously potentially cloud services you might budget for as well, right? So there are other ways of challenging that rather than going out and buying hardware, unless it's really fundamental to your research projects.
I was about to say the same thing. There might be other routes that would be totally applicable to add in as sort of part of the cost profile.
Great. I think that's it on the questions, and we are bang on 2 o'clock or just over. There was one last question from Alex, but I think they've commented again saying that they think their question has been addressed. So do shout, Alex, if not. If not, I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to our excellent presenters and for answering all the questions. Thank you for all of your insightful questions as well. Please check out all of the documents, all of the links which are shared in the chat. We'll follow up as well in an email. And yeah, we look forward to hopefully seeing some applications from you all. So thank you all.
Thank you all
so much for coming.
All the best.
All the best.